In this video, I will discuss some challenges incurred during implementing the data dashboard and some possible improvements that could be done to the data dashboard. So the first thing that I see in my current implementation, I implemented the dashboard to execute an executable workflow in data view. There was no input passed. If you remember, we in the previous video, I showed how to execute the AWF underscore divide workflow, which is an executable workflow. So, which seemed to be straightforward, but then how do we execute a reusable workflow remotely? And that involves passing one or more input from the dashboard to the data view. Um, this seems to be tricky, so I have some idea on how to implement this. Um, so the first thing that I have in mind is to accept the input from the dashboard and create necessary data products automatically. So um, let's say the workflow is arithmetic workflow divide. It takes two inputs, 2040. So basically we create those two scalar data product of type integer automatically. And then the second thing is to construct the specification of the executable workflow, which is the SWIL, and store the workflow in our database. So in order to do this, we may need to create the SWIL, which is XML. So we need to create this automatically. If you remember, in data view, this is created by the system. So during the handshake process, we may need to create that executable workflow automatically. This is like creating a primitive executable workflow automatically without a MX graph diagram. Okay. Finally, we could execute the workflow remotely. So at that point, the workflow is created and all its data products are created. So it's we could use our previous implementation to execute that executable workflow remotely. Okay, so that's the first challenge that I see. And the second one is some workflow can execute for a long period, such as registration of collectional data product, and it could be a ETL workflow, which involve data pre-processing, partitioning, and mapping the collectional data product key to the data nodes, and map reduce style workflows, etc. So there are, these workflows can execute for a long period, maybe for 4 hours or maybe for even a day or so. But the data scientist cannot have the dashboard open for such a long time. So if you remember in the previous video, when I showed the dashboard, the user click on the run analyzer, and then the connections still need to be active in order to get the output. Okay, so but then if the workflows is run for a long period of time, then that connection cannot be opened from the browser or from the data dashboard to the data view. So one solution for that is once the handshake is initiated, the dashboard should disconnect itself from the process. Okay. Behind the screens, the workflow will still be executed on the server. But then the data dashboard no longer need to be connected there. Okay. And okay, so if we happen to do that, then a monitoring functionality is needed, so the data scientist can monitor the execution of their data analysis by some reporting functionality. Let's say in our example, the AWF divide, the user click on the run analyzer, and then we end the connection. from the dashboard, right? And then at that point, we may need to have like a module to show the output of that workflow uh, that got executed, right? If it is running for 4 days or so, what is going on in the execution of the workflow in terms of monitoring it. We might need to know, or the data analyst would be interested to know, right? So after let's say the workflow ran for 1 day, maybe after every couple of hours, the data analyst would log into the data dashboard and see the results of how much progress the execution of the workflow has done, and so on. Okay. And then there are times where the data analyst can provide their own data analysis module through the data dashboard. I see this could be a possibility as well, because some data analyst could be a programmer themselves, or their data analysis module could be complex um, enough. So in that case, we can create a primitive command line workflows or primitive web service based workflows during the handshake process. And what I mean by that is we could have in the dashboard, an upload a file option where the user could upload their class file or their executable, or it could be a Vista URL, like what we had in data view when we did our shimming paper. So similar to that, we could have the same thing in the dashboard, and except that here the handshake process need to take that file and move it to the data view and create a command line workflow or a primitive web service workflow. Okay, so that's a thought on, yeah, on the challenges. Thanks for watching this video.